Welcome, everyone. I'm Angelina Carleton, hostess of the Design Your Legacy podcast, where I look to distill the best practices, positive examples in action, and the best ideas to inspire you. As today's affluent are two-thirds self-made, I hope to invite a variety of guests from many walks of life and income levels to bring you their insights and experiences. These guests range from family office professionals, Hollywood directors, and those in Generation Z, as they each contribute their thought leadership to this subject of legacy. I hope to provide interesting guests who challenge your beliefs with their strong bias towards optimism and how you too can value your life, time, and personal legacy. This lovely afternoon, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Mr. Les Winston. He has been in the insurance and financial services industry for over 40 years. He's also a registered investment advisor, and he leads the Endow America Network Foundation. In 2016, he was given the 15th Leadership Award from the International Association of Advisors in Philanthropy. This award recognizes annually an individual with a distinguished career in service to the philanthropic community. Awardees are chosen for their efforts to uphold the standards of excellence in ethics, service, and charitable planning encouraged by the association. Welcome, Mr. Winston.
Thank you for having me, Angelina.
So, should we start out with Section 664 of the IRS Code, or where would you like to start this lovely afternoon in Miami?
I think we should start at a little bit at the beginning. The code was changed, has been changed many times. When we're talking about the code, we're talking about the Internal Revenue Code. A lot of those changes are used today. One of the changes that was made was the creation of Section 401k, which a lot of people know what that is. They know that 401k represents retirement, and they're not sure how the name came about, but I can refer them to a section of the tax code, which is actually Section 401k. And in that section, you can read about the recipe about how to create an employment retirement plan. Same thing is true with Section 529. And the reason I'm using those sections is because I want the listener to understand that you're already brainwashed about certain sections of the code. All we want to do is we want to add another section. And that section is a really important section because I think it's extremely valuable at this particular point in time of our own individual economic well-being, but it's also important in the economic well-being of our country. We took this task on of endowing America for the purposes of changing America from 30 trillion in debt to 30 trillion in endowment. We are of the belief that government should not be supporting non-governmental organizations. It's an oxymoron to have government supporting non-governmental organizations and borrowing money to do it, which is what's been happening over a very long period of time here in this wonderful country of ours. And that has created debt. It is causing deficit spending in a lot of instances, and it's not really necessary if we would use what Congress gave us, which was Section 664 of the tax code. So Section 664 was unusual. It was a bargain that Congress thought was important. They said, we want to increase the amount of charitable wealth in the country, meaning we would like to have more money in the charitable sector because we believe that the charitable sector will ultimately be the way that will take care of the community's problems rather than us doing it as the government. And that was a pretty wise thing that they came up with in 1969. And that was directly after Lyndon Johnson's Great Society and the war on poverty and the creation of Medicare and all of those things that occurred. They knew that the demographics of this country were going to change over time, that people will be living longer, that there will be more people. And so the plan that they had made, even if you go back to 1934, when Social Security was created, Social Security is outdated. It's become different, and it's become a different thing than it was meant to be when it was created, and it's going to become even more different in the future. So I like to say, when I ask young people today, do you think you're going to get Social Security? And 100 almost 100% say no. At least they don't believe they're going to get it in the same way that they're getting it, that people are getting it now. And frankly, a lot of young people don't want to support the older people in the country against their will, which is kind of like what they feel. So there's a lot of young people who are in the gig economy who don't really have W-2 income, who have found a way to really basically not pay tax. And that's, listen, more power to them if they can do that and they can avoid it. That's great. So what does Section 664 actually do? And I think this is an important part of the puzzle. The Congress wanted to increase charitable wealth. So how do you get people to do that? If you go and ask somebody for charitable gift, or charity, charity can be a lot of things. It's charity, it's giving, and it's also philanthropy. And I think that their idea was philanthropy, not charitable giving as much. But the difference is that you can give $1 to the Salvation Army, and that's charity. You can give a grant to somebody for $150 or $200 as a gift to as a contribution to a nonprofit organization, and that's giving. But that's not philanthropy. Philanthropy is different. It's where you're actually getting involved. And so they created a necessity for people actually to get involved in philanthropy when they created Section 664, because they said, look, you can make a bequest. If you want to leave something behind when you die, that's fine. You want to put it in your will and say, I'm going to leave this to this, or you want to, direct that some income is going to go to a certain place when you die, that's fine. The people that are receiving that gift, first of all, they usually don't even know that it's there, because not many people are telling the organization that they've bequested, we've bequested. They don't even know that it's there. And the other thing is, even if they did tell them it was there, doesn't mean it's going to go there, because by the time the individual dies, they may not have it anymore. They may change their will, they may get married, they can have kids, who knows, but people do change bequests. So the government recognized that, and that's one of the reasons why you don't get a tax deduction today if you make a bequest in your will. So they said, well, let's do it differently. Let's say that we'll have the person set up a trust, and we'll call it a charitable trust. And that charitable trust will be something that they create, that they'll be the trustee for, that they'll be the income beneficiary of. And the deal is this: you put something into this charitable trust, we'll give you a tax deduction for doing that. Okay, we'll give you tax protection against your estate tax for doing that. We'll help you avoid a capital gains tax on that property when you put it into our trust, into your trust. And then you can sell it in the trust and invest it to return income to yourself for the rest of your life. And if you want, you can leave it to your wife as well. So that's a pretty good bargain. That was a good deal. The government said, we'll give you lower taxes while you're alive if you just do this, promise to do this at your death. And the way you're promising is in a trust. So it created more of a philanthropic idea, because now an individual had to do something. They had to take time. They had to get an advisor. They had to learn what this was all about. They had to really understand it. And I think it's for that reason that Section 664 has been so difficult to get into the public psyche. People can't use what they don't know. Goethe said, you see what you know. If I buy a red Corvette, the next thing I see is everybody's driving a red Corvette. The same thing is true here. If people know that this exists, they can use it. So we went a step further. We also recognize that not only Section 664 was created then, but a couple of other sections are also created, and those created different devices with the same kind of attitude, in the sense that you do something for charity when you die, you'll get tax deductions while you're alive, you'll get tax benefits while you're alive. And they created pooled income funds, and they created charitable gift annuities. So we call all of those social charity. Why? Well, it sounds like Social Security purposely, because it's like Social Security. It's coming from the government. The government created it. The purpose is to provide supplemental income for retirement purposes, which is what Social Security does. It was designed to help orphans and widows which Social Charity does. It's designed to make sure that you have something in the future so that you're not going to be penniless when you're older. And that's what Section 664 and Social Charity do. They do. That's exactly what they do. The only difference is that one is a lot more flexible than the other, and you have control over one where you don't have control over the other. And this is the biggest thing, in my opinion, with Social Security. When you put all your money in there every year, you're paying a percentage of your income, and your employer is paying a percentage of their income, and it's all going into your Social Security account. And you don't get married, you don't have any kids, and you reach age 60, 67 or whatever it is now, and one day and you die, all of that money that you put in went poof, disappeared. The only thing you get is $255 to bury yourself. So what happened to that money? Where did all that money that you put in, where did it end up going? Well, that's the thing. If you did the same thing with Social Charity as you do with Social Security, at the end of the day, what's left is actually going to go to support something that you wanted to support at your death. That's a beautiful thing. That's a win-win-win situation. Everybody wins. The donor wins, his family wins, the community wins, and in fact, the government wins, because the government knew it was going to happen, that we were going to run into a place at some point in time where we had to have another means to take care of the social needs of the country. And they did this, but nobody knows about it. So we're trying to tell people that it exists.
Wonderful. So as a tool for legacy planning, it is a brilliant strategy.
Thank you.
So would you tell me a bit about Endow America? Like, what was the inspiration? Did it start a couple of years ago? Did it stem from frustration because people didn't know about Section 664?
Well, it came from, actually, the original foundation name was the Advisors in Philanthropy Foundation, and it was created as a project that was connected to the Advisors in Philanthropy organization. And it was created for the purposes of increasing the number of professional advisors in philanthropy, and to educate the public that such advisors existed, and further to educate the public about what it was that these advisors would be helping them about. So the Advisors in Philanthropy Foundation had those three objectives, and those three objectives still exist, but we felt that the name needed to be changed to be more meaningful in terms of what the overall purpose of what that is. You can have all the advisors in philanthropy in the world, but if nobody knows what it is that the real goal is, it's like, compare it to certified public accountants. A CPA, as opposed to a professional philanthropic advisor, as opposed to what we call a CAP, Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy. That's a designation that's given by the American College, very important designation. That identifies individuals as professional philanthropic advisors. So the CPAs are basically people that we know to go to help us pay our tax. We are a little different. We're the people that people should go to if they want to pay less tax and keep more of their money and do something good for the community. So we needed to find a way to make this meaningful, and endowing America is the most important goal. Because if we could have a hospital in every community that is basically endowed, what does that mean? It means that it has enough capital in reserve to earn enough each year to pay its expenses to operate in the community. Well, what that does is that's enabling people to have a lot less expense in their medical bills. And if they can get that done by paying less tax, because if you think about it, to me, this is a little backwards, okay? I'm a taxpayer, so I pay tax to the government. Now, a lobbyist from a nonprofit organization, a non-governmental organization, goes to Washington and goes to talk to my representative and says, listen, we need a grant. We're a nonprofit, we're a non-governmental organization, but we need a grant to study salamanders who live in East Africa, who drive across the desert in a safari automobile, okay? And we're a nonprofit, we're an NGO. And this is the reason why you should give us the money, okay? And the congressman says, that sounds like a great idea. You're in my state. Obviously, this is something that's really important to us. So we're going to give you a grant. We're going to try and get you a grant. And so government tax dollars now are granted to that nonprofit organization. Part of what that nonprofit organization spends that money on is the lobbyist who goes back to Washington to get another grant the following year. Now, that would be okay if it wasn't so limited. Not every organization can afford to have a lobbyist. Not every organization can afford to go to the government. But what's really crazy about that is they don't need to go to the government to get that money. They can go to the public directly to get that money. So instead of going to my representative to get the money, why aren't they talking to me to get the money and telling me what their case is? Most of the time, it's because it's not really that good. Their
Okay.
case is not usually that great for a lot of reasons. The best case scenario is one where you know the hospital or the school that's in your community that you think you want to make a safe, great school, or you want to make your streets safe and great, or you want to make, to me, for a city like Los Angeles or a city like San Francisco to have a problem with homeless people.
Oh, it's huge. Yes.
Well, that's like I heard this the other night. I thought it was a great quote. It was Voltaire. I wish I could pull it up. It was, if they can get you to believe something that is crazy, then you can commit atrocities. They can get you to commit atrocities. To me, people living on the street in a drug infested area that's an atrocity. In this day and time, it's an atrocity. They don't focus on that atrocity. They're focusing on an atrocity that they want to focus on. I don't want to get political, but the point is that we're being led down an economic path that's bizarre.
Without
And
the full disclosure of our options and our ability to take personal agency of our legacy.
yes, exactly. That's the whole point.
Yeah, well, it's okay to be political. I think it's the passion that's coming out regarding that we need to have the full information. And if we're not taught about Section 664, even trusts, many individuals are not taught about trust.
But we don't have a financial education. There's no financial education given to students anymore. The financial education is gone. So what you're doing is you're creating people who are not going to be able to function in a financial world, in an economic world. So that was the importance of financialism.
Unless it's taught in the home. Yeah.
Well, it can't get taught in the home if there's no financialism in the home.
Yeah. No, that's why I think this conversation is incredibly important, because you're right. It's not being taught in the public school system. And then where does it leave the young people? Although 80% of the podcast listeners are under age 40, so they will be listening to you.
Well, that's good. I mean, we're going to be an education and resource for them, in spite of everything else. Is the way I view it. There's nothing political about this. There's nothing about profit in this. This is strictly about utilizing what was given to us at a time when it was obviously that it would be needed in the future, and for us to take advantage of it the way that it should have been taken advantage for all these years. In 50 years, very little has been done with this section of the code and with these concepts, and that needs to change. And if that changes over time, we've put out a white paper on our website on socialcharity.org. That white paper defines where we see the country in 2050 if we were to follow a path. We're also suggesting that young people serve the country, that we need to start creating a meaningful leadership potential in our country, and we're not doing that anymore. And I think part of that has to do with what happens to these youngsters that are reaching age 18, who are not going to college, even the ones that are going to college, who don't really have an idea what they want to do. So I think that 2 years of service to the country, male and female, required. The first 4 months of that would be a kind of a boot camp, which is to teach discipline, which is to find out the qualities of the individual, teamwork, the things that you need to do to get along in life. And then the next 20 months would be whatever they are appropriately fitted for, what they would like to do, what they would enjoy doing, as long as it fits in the parameters. It could be rebuilding America, it could be the ecosystem, it could be science, it could be any of those things, and they get college credit for that. They would get 2 years of college credit if it's something that warrants the credit, and then they can go on to regular. So what are we doing? We're ending up paying for their college. We'll pay for their junior college education, but they got to give something in return for that. And what they're giving is service to the country.
And it's also building some skill sets that are practical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're also getting to find out who they are. They're getting to find out what they really want. I mean, when I went to school, I think it's still going on today. I mean, if you ask an 18-year-old that's going to college, what do you want to do? I want to be a teacher. Okay, why do you want to be a teacher? I don't know. That's what I wanted to be for a long time. Then I go to school and I realize I really don't want to be a teacher.
Yeah. Or what's interesting today is some of the young millennials, Gen Z, they want to go into the trades because they feel like that makes the 6 figures.
Yeah.
But there's still compromises if somebody becomes a part, like a plumber or a carpenter, regarding, the wear and tear on the body and so forth, that it might not be all glamorous.
Well, that's true. That's true, but they're making a lot of money now.
Yeah.
So they don't have to work as hard if they do things properly, but they still need a financial education.
They do.
That's still a thing that's lacking. So they can be, look, if you got a basketball player and the basketball player gets a $3 million bonus, what do they do with it?
They need to have the education.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they just don't blow it for in the moment with Madison Avenue. Okay. So the Social Charity website mentions 3 case studies. I'm just going to bring them up right now, and then I've got a question for you. Number 1, a couple that is using their summer homes as a charitable gift annuity to endow their favorite charity, paying less tax and receiving a fixed endowment income. That's number 1. Number 2, a business owner who contributes to his or her charitable remainder trust that then allows them to endow an organization such as a hospital and only pay necessary taxable funds. And number 3, high income earners, let's say in the millennial or the Gen X or Gen Z bracket, that can make use of social charity to secure future retirement income, pay less tax, and support their favorite charities. So my question to you is, in addition to these examples, what is it that you are seeing out there that is good and positive in the choices that clients are making, or just what you might be seeing overall in the road or on the road to human kindness?
Good question. The best example is the last minute gift that that we were able to help an individual make on the 30th of December. We got an emergency phone call from the accountant for this manufacturer, and he has a significant tax problem. He was very unhappy with the market. He was afraid that the market was going to start to collapse. He was kind of a foreseer of what was going on. And so he wanted to liquidate some stock, and realized that in doing so, there would be a significant capital gains tax. So he wanted to do a couple of things. He wanted to reduce his income tax, and he also wanted to not pay capital gains tax. So we had him put the $800,000 worth of stock into a pooled income fund. That was done on the 30th of the year, 30th of December. So he got a tax deduction because that gift was made before the end of the year. The money, the stock that was put into the pooled income fund was then liquidated in a pooled income fund. Now, a pooled income fund is a tax-exempt organization. So a tax exempt means it didn't have to pay any capital gains tax. So it got the full $800,000 in value. That $800,000 is now invested according to the pooled income fund's description of their how they handle their financial investments to produce income, maximum income. So that $800,000 has been invested to produce maximum income in the form of either interest, dividends, short-term capital gains, and up to 50% of long-term capital gains that are realized, which means that an individual basically could get all the income pretty much out of the pooled income fund on an annual basis. So what did it actually do for this individual? Well, he was trying to sell that $800,000 worth of stock so he could invest it to produce income. But if he would have sold it outright, he would have only gotten 800,000 less the 100,000 initial investment of 700, leaving 700,000 capital gains. So he would have left behind at least $140,000 in tax. That's a lot. So if you take $140,000 off of the 800, he's now only investing 660. 660 doesn't invest the same way as 800,000. It doesn't yield the same thing. The other thing that happened when he put that money into the account, he got a tax deduction. The tax deduction was based and is based on the age of the individual who's getting the income. So he and his wife will get the income for the rest of their lives, and they're 65. They're both 65. So they got a 64% of $800,000 tax deduction for last year. That worked out to about, let's say, 400,000. I don't know exact number is, but let's say it's 400,000. That's a $400,000 tax deduction against his income. If he can utilize that in 1 year, fine. But if he wants, he can carry that forward an additional 5 years. So he's got a tax deduction. He didn't pay the capital gains tax of his stock when he sold it. He made out very well using a social charity device. So that's what I see a lot of. I see that happening more and more because there are a lot of people who have been using donor advised funds to do that. And in fact, on our website, on socialcharity.org, you can find a comparison between using a donor advised fund for this purpose and a pooled income fund for this purpose. And you can see them side by side. There's a lot of information on socialcharity.org about how people can get more acquainted with what this is all about, because it's a little complex because there's a lot of moving parts. So it's the same thing as why you call a plumber. Okay. People don't know how to take pipes apart. They don't know how to find the leak. They don't know how to do the things that a plumber does. So basically, the professional philanthropic advisor is a plumber to help you get past your plumbing problem, which happens to be a tax problem or an income problem or something like that. So it helps you also. And the other thing that it does, it's really great, which is at the end of the day, the donor actually called me a week and a half after he had decided to do this and after we had done it. And he said, you know, to tell you the truth, he says, I'm really looking forward to how I'm going to help my kids learn how to distribute that $800,000 in charitable giving when I'm gone. That was really quite an amazing thing. It made him feel really, really good. And as we know, health is directly related to human kindness and feeling good.
Yes.
So it's a really just terrific. I love what I do. I do. To me, it's the best thing in the world because it makes people think about their genius. You know, it makes them think about what it is that they want out of life and what's important. And sometimes it's not only money. All right.
So your website mentions the following slogan: 664, not war, says no wars between countries, no internal wars, no wars being fought on our streets or in our schools, because we can properly fund the social service needs of our communities, global or local, without additional taxation. Would you speak on that slogan for a moment? Because it's got a beautiful big picture view.
Well, thank you. The purpose, that slogan is really a different iteration of what Abraham Lincoln said, which was charity to all, malice towards none. But we have defined a way for that to actually happen, because charity to all has been the basis of our country from its founding until we became a bureaucracy to a great degree. When we became a bureaucracy, it wasn't so much charitable, it became a bottom line country, unfortunately. And that has hurt us tremendously. I think that there were too many MBA degrees that were based on bottom line thinking only. And I think that that has hurt us as a country. It's hurt us as a world, basically. Everything is kind of bottom line, no matter what we're dealing with. And that has to change, and it has to change, and it will change, because I think, as I said before, that we're coming into the economic era. And in the economic era, you don't fight with your trading partners. The Dutch and the British never fought after they started trading. And that's true of everything. And I think that an economic world is a peaceful world, because in an economic world, you have ways for anybody to be able to be part of the economic world, and it's not controlled by somebody above you and telling you what you can and can't do. And I think that's where the problems come in. So we've evolved. We've evolved from tribalism to religiosity to the political world, and now we're in the economic world. And I believe the next world is actually the era of human kindness, which is why I like to call it the road to human kindness. Exactly. I think that people will be taking care of people and not, trying to injure people. I think that is the way most people, I think more people feel kindness to others than feel malice towards others. The problem is that we don't have the financial structure to allow for that to happen. And that's what 664 does. If one of the things that we had recommended in the white paper was that when conscription happens for 18-year-olds,
Military service, yes.
At that same time, those individuals will open up a social security account.
Oh.
And that social security account becomes mandatory going forward. So what it does is it gives us an opportunity to gradually move from where we're at now, because ending Social Security, if you say to anybody, we're stopping Social Security, it's like, you're the evil himself. But in the meantime, Social Security is going to end up stopping itself because it's not working.
Yeah.
And so that's the reality. To be able to accept absurdities allows atrocities. And that's what we're dealing with here. It's an atrocity if people put money into a system and then never get anything back because it fails. So I'm not saying that the government's going to fail, but it's not going to be the same. You were going to say something.
Well, I just think you're looking around the corner and how to be proactive in the remedies so Americans aren't shocked, because I think the reason that response comes when they bring up Social Security is because it's connected to survival. If I'm at 65 or older and I'm expecting that check to come in, and let's say for my generation it's not going to come in, then that's going to be a huge surprise.
Right. Well, the unfortunate thing is that 50% of the population that's receiving Social Security is relying on Social Security for most of what they live on.
Correct.
And that was never the way it was designed. It was designed only as a supplement to income. It became a much bigger thing, and it has grown. And as a result of that, entitlements take a very big part of our annual budget, which is one of the reasons why we're in debt. So we need to shrink. In fact, if you go, another thing is on the website, there's an animation about a dream I had where I had a dream about Uncle Sam coming to my financial planning office and telling me what bad shape he was in.
Oh, I remember. There's a 2-minute video.
You can see in the animation on our website. But it's I got problems, and the problems I got, says Uncle Sam, are based on there's more people now. I had 2 generations to worry about, a mother and a father. I mean, a father and a son. Now I got grandfathers, great grandfathers, and great great grandfathers. I got people living to be 100. I was never intended for that, And so the solution that I talk about in my dream is what Congress did 50 years ago, and we're not using it, And the reason we're not using it is nobody knows about it. So we're going to let people know about it. So if people know about 664, they will create a more charitable world. In a more charitable world, economic conditions and charitable help will ease tension and stop war. And so it's 664, not war.
Yeah, it'll definitely stop the animosity. There was a guest that you had on your podcast. I think he was from Kentucky, and he and his wife, I believe, helped with playgrounds so that disabled children would have access, compared to like the bump that's on the outside. which again,
Right.
it's small nuances, but it's those distinctions that people see and they have a heart for, and then therefore they can give, and then it gets to also become a part of your legacy and their
Right.
legacy. Yes.
It's Confucian. Um, Confucius Confucius said that you need to start in your own home, make that better. That'll make your town better. That'll make your city better. That'll make your state better, country better, nation better, and the world better. And
Yeah.
that's really where things need to start. That's why financialism devoted to the individual's feelings of financial well-being are so important. If we can get individuals to have financial well-being, they're much more productive and they can get to the point where they work at their genius, which is what everybody would like to do.
Yes. Very nice. And I
Yeah.
just want to acknowledge that you have the vision to see this and to pull a group of people together to educate the American population about this, because if the framework is there, then we need to look at it and utilize it and maximize it, et cetera, because we don't need this country to be falling apart. And that's what many of us are seeing right now with inflation and the divide. And yeah, there doesn't need to be unnecessary trauma and suffering.
We're fractured. And the
Correct.
reason that we're fractured is political. And if you can evaluate things, is this political or is this economic? Is this political or is this economic? If you understand how politics takes a bigger role than economics in this, you get a handle on it. It's not that distant to us right now. I think that the reason for that, again, as I said, is the technology. Communication is key. If individuals can be communicated to understand that there is a solution out there, that things are not hopeless, that there's definitely a way, and that way was given to you by Congress, it's even more impressive.
It will give people hope. So
Yeah,
here's the part where I get to get a little personal with my guest.
sure.
So what would you like your legacy to be? And or what are some of your personal ideas on where to give or where you would like to give to your community?
I would like my legacy to be that what I have talked about comes true, that America can become that charitable basket for the world, and that people will be happy to have done what they have done because they didn't suffer as a result of the giving, and they didn't suffer in the results that the giving has ended up what it is that ended up doing. And so I think that my legacy would be to end the debt and to create the endowment in the country, as we've been talking about. And what I do, everything that I do, basically, I do as a steward, as a shepherd. I don't get paid for what I do with the Endow America Network Foundation. I'm on a volunteer basis. I am a volunteer president of our Chamber of Commerce here in Aventura and Sunny Isles Beach. In fact, I've wed the two in a sense, because I think that the work of the Endow America Network Foundation can be supported and be supportive of chambers of commerce to change the way things are. I think chambers of commerce are very powerful entities and that they're not being used. If I was the president of the Chamber of Commerce of San Francisco or Los Angeles or any of these cities that has a homeless problem, I would not be as quiet as they're being. There's a disconnect there somewhere. How can you have commerce when you have that in your streets? It's not possible. And so there's something wrong. So those things need to be corrected. And so I believe that building my chamber and working through the chamber to help schools, streets, things that chambers of commerce have a dealing with, that the people are looking for the chamber to help with, that's a really important part of what we do.
Wonderful. And what values do you get to honor? What core values?
I think service is an important value. I think kindness, service and kindness, and not and being selfish and selfless at the same time. It's very selfish, frankly, to give. I know that people don't and may not have that potential understanding of that, but
Because it brings so much meaning.
yeah,
Yeah.
it brings so much good feeling that that's actually a selfish act, and it's also selfless but it's selfish. It's kind of a weird thing, but I don't think we need to worry. I think there's too much attention being paid to people who think about themselves, and the reality is that there is nobody in this world that doesn't think about themselves. They just think there's guilt in that for some reason. But you can think about yourself and still be very good to other people just by
Yeah.
thinking about yourself.
Yeah. Well, filling your own bucket, being smart about your future, and then in turn, you have something to give out of your cup.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
So who
Thank
has,
you for giving thanks for what you've got.
yeah. So who
Mhm.
has inspired you?
My father was a very big inspiration. My grandmother was a very big inspiration as well. She used to always have tzedakah, which is in the Jewish tradition. It's saving money for the poor and providing money to the poor. I used to nick it a few times when I was a kid. Uh, but she knew I was doing it, so she knew I was poor. So okay,
Maybe she was
but
a menschie. Yeah.
yeah, right. She was, but she was a very giving person. She had tremendous struggles in her life, coming out of a war-torn country, seeing her husband shot before her eyes, bringing 5 children to the United States at very young ages. I mean, it's her story is quite unusual, but she was also very, very proud to be in America and very proud to be to be able to give back. My mother believed in paying taxes. I That's how much she loved America, because America basically she thinks saved her life. So when I would talk to her about doing planning to avoid paying estate tax, no, I want to pay the government. I think the government's giving me a lot. I said, okay, Mom. That's the way it was. But that's what everybody is individually destined to do what their individual direction is in whatever direction is being taken. And so they're basically on a little bit of autopilot, but only the people can change themselves, and they need to have the ability and have a way to
They
do
need to have
that.
the
And
knowledge. Yeah.
yeah, they
Yeah.
need to be focused. There needs to be a way to come to the conclusions that you need to come to during your lifetime. And I think that's a really big um, missing link in our systems. And so what you do and what I do and people like us do, we're dedicated to making people become more aware of everything. And that's a good thing. So
Very nice. Very nice.
mhm.
Absolutely. I think with education and an understanding of the available resources, people are more at choice. And if they don't feel stuck, then that creativity, or what you call the genius zone, just starts to flow through them and get enhanced and encouraged and so forth.
Yeah, I think people would be happy. People who are doing what they're happy doing are happy. People
Yeah.
who are stuck in things that they hate
Mhm.
are unhappy. They're not able to be happy because they're not looking forward to that. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think for anyone who is watching this and they're of affluence, and they feel guilty about their money, that this is one way that they can
Yeah.
be able to give and invite more meaning into their lives. So it's not just what I call news, sports, and weather. And to, the young individuals age 40 and below that are watching this or listening to the podcast version, I think it's also giving them more personal agency, that they can be creative with their finances, their future, and also how they connect with their community, so they don't have to feel separated from, because they, are, like you said, today's society is very divided for many reasons, not just politically, but it can also be economic. Like if you have a big red fire truck and I don't, metaphorically, yeah.
Right.
But this is a way
Right.
now to give them that personal agency, because it's another tool, 664 of the IRS code.
Exactly. 664 and social security. Those are the tools. You need to know how to use them, and they can help you do very well. Because anytime you can save tax dollars, it's more money in your pocket. And people don't even pay attention sometimes to the tax that they pay.
Yeah.
I get that a lot. I said, do you ever look at your pay stub? There's money going out of that pay stub every day, every week, or every 2 weeks, whenever you get paid. But it's substantial, and it doesn't have to be that much. And unfortunately, the more that the government spends, the greater the tax. The more greater the tax, the more the government spends, more inflation. It's a pretty slippery slope that we're on right now. And I don't see a political solution to it other than the one that they gave us a long time ago, which was to say, we want to get out of this part of what we're doing, and we need to turn it over to you guys, the private sector, and let the charitable non-governmental agencies do what we can't do and what we think we can do. That's the problem that we have. So, and well, there's a way to solve a problem, and people need to know about it. So,
Wonderful. Okay.
yeah.
Any final thoughts, such as your website or the best way that a listener can reach you?
Well, yeah, so obviously go to socialscharity.org, the website, socialscharity.org, SECHARITY, charity.org. You can also listen to our webcasts. You can listen to our webcasts on Facebook, on YouTube. You can also tune into the fantastic digital radio station that we've created, which is Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness. You can find that at route664.org/radio. And we're on Amazon Music. I know that the podcasts that we do are on Amazon. We're getting pretty well known, and interviews like yours are welcome. I love talking about what we're doing. I get to talk this way, and I'm usually interviewing people. So thank you very much for having me, Angelina. I appreciate it.
Very cool. It was my pleasure. And I think that this is a wonderful financial tool for many people to know about. And I can even make the joke, it won't kneecap the next generation.
That's great. Absolutely. I like that. Good job.
Okay. All right.
That's it. 664, not war. See?
But
Kneecapping is war, but
all right. So in
Take it
closing,
yeah.
I'm Angelina Carleton, the hostess of the Design Your Legacy podcast, as well as the founder of Legacy Planning, a boutique coaching and advisory firm based out of Beverly Hills, but international in those I coach. I hope to dive deep into subjects that can help a person define, develop, and execute their legacy, and continue to scour the landscape for those who can be great resources to every dimension of your legacy. For many listeners, there can never be enough education and preparation in their moat around their castle. Whether you find yourself with new wealth or generational wealth, may the content of this channel be an anchor in any storms ahead. We do our best to provide original content for your intellectual and emotional curiosity. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please like and subscribe, or rate and review if you're on Apple Podcasts, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.